Okay, I'd like to call to order this regular meeting of the Lincoln Lancaster County Planning Commission of March 2nd, 2016. A printed agenda is available outside the hearing room, and a copy of the full agenda, including staff reports, is available in the front of the chambers with the clerk. Open Meetings Act is posted just inside the door at the back of the room. If you parked in the parking garage across the street to the north, be sure to pick up a parking coupon for free parking. They're right up here by David. Out of courtesy for those attending the meeting, the commissioners and the staff, cellular phone usage is not permitted in these chambers during any portion of this meeting. We appreciate your cooperation. David, would you please come forward and introduce Paul Barnes as our new long-range principal planner?
Yes, thank you. David Carey with the Planning Department. It's my pleasure to introduce our new long-range planning manager, Paul Barnes. You all know about Paul for the few years now of his being here with us and doing development review projects. He also was the lead on the South Haymarket neighborhood plan that we just got approved back in December. So very exciting to have Paul fill this position. He'll do a great job, and I'm excited to have my old position filled. That's a good thing for me as well. And so, Paul, if you want to just maybe make a few comments.
Good afternoon. This is officially my 5th day as the long-range planning manager. So in those 5 days, we've been diving into the LRTP, the CIP, the comp plan update, and overall, there's just a lot going on in this division. So taking some of that pressure off of David, I'm sure is appreciated, as he said. Just looking forward to working in the long-range division. I think we have a lot of good plans and projects underway, and I'll be seeing you continued in the future on those projects. So I look forward to that as well.
Congratulations, Paul.
Congratulations.
It's great to have you here. The Planning Commission action on all items on today's agenda is a recommendation to the City Council or the County Board. The first item of business is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held March 2nd, 2016. Could I have a motion, please?
Move approval.
Second, Harris.
Thank you. Jerry, please call the vote.
Beecham?
I'm going to have to abstain because I was absent.
Did you read them?
I did. Can I approve them?
Yeah.
All right, then I'm going to vote yes.
Okay. Thank you. Harris?
Yes.
Lust?
Yes.
Sunderman?
Yes.
Hove?
Yes.
Motion carried 5-0.
The next item of business is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda will be called at the same time and will not be scheduled for a separate public hearing unless there's a request from someone wishing to speak or at the request of a commission member. I'll ask Jared to read all the consent agenda items into the record. Once those items are read, she will ask if there is anyone wishing to speak. If you wish to speak on an item on the consent agenda, we would ask that you stand and state that item. That item will then be removed from the consent agenda and scheduled as a separate public hearing under Section 3 of today's agenda. All items remaining on the consent agenda will be voted upon in total with a motion for approval. Jerry, will you please call the items on the consent agenda?
Yes, the first two items are related. There's an annexation with related change of zone. Item 1.1A is annexation number 16002 to annex approximately 89.59 acres more or less, including adjacent right-of-way on property generally located at North 89th and Fremont Streets. Item 1.1B is change of zone number 05054D from change of zone from B2 Planned Neighborhood Business District to R3 Residential District, and from AG Agricultural District to R3 Residential District on property generally located at North 89th and Fremont Street. Next item is item 1.2, which is change of zone number 16002 from H3 Highway Commercial District to I1 Industrial District on property generally located at Southwest 32nd Street and West O Streets. And agenda item 1.3, which is county change of zone number 16003 from AG Agricultural District to R Residential District. I'm hoping that that's not a typo there. I think it's just R. Would it be R1? Is it R? Okay. On property generally located at 21805 South 96th Street. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed on these consent agenda items?
I see none.
Is there anyone here wishing to speak on any one of these items? If so, please stand and state that item.
Seeing none, I entertain a motion.
Move approval, Lust.
Thank you.
Second, Sunderman.
Jerry, please call the vote.
Beecham,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Lust,
Yes.
Sunderman,
Yes.
Hove.
Yes.
Motion carried, 5-0.
There are no requests for deferrals, so we will now proceed to public hearings. The staff will make a brief presentation. The applicant will then be requested to present his or her testimony, followed by those who wish to testify in support, followed by those who wish to testify in opposition. The staff will then be given an opportunity to respond to the testimony, and then the applicant shall have an opportunity for rebuttal. Each person testifying should state their name and address and shall have 5 minutes to speak unless additional time is requested and granted. The timer will go off after 4 minutes, then you'll have 1 minute to wrap up your testimony. The Planning Commission will vote immediately at the close of the public hearing unless the Commission votes to defer action or continue the public hearing. Jerry, please call the first public hearing item.
Okay, there's two related text amendments. Item 4.1A is text amendment number 16003, amending the City of Lincoln design standards to Chapter 3.100, design standards for outdoor lighting, providing design standards for the installation of outdoor luminaires, revisions to Section 3, amending the definition of lumen, luminaire, and mounting height, amending subsection 6.2 to refer to the latest edition of the cited IES-NA standard, amending subsection 6.3 and 6.4 to require LED light sources for local residential streets and to further require under 6.4 certain specified street light intensity, and to amend subsection 6.7 to refer to highway luminaires instead of street lights, and repealing sections 3, 4, 6, 7, 9, and 12 of Chapter 3.100 as hitherto existing. Staff recommendation on this text amendment is for approval. Next item is item 4.1B, text amendment number 16005, amending section 26.27.005 of the Lincoln Municipal Code relating to the minimum required improvements within the final plat to provide that the city may encourage and promote installation of new minimum required improvements not required in a previously approved final plat by agreeing to subsidize the increased cost of the new minimum required improvement in accordance with specific criteria adopted by resolution of the City Council, and repealing section 26.27.005 of the Lincoln Municipal Code as hitherto existing. Staff recommendation is for approval. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed on these items?
I see none.
Tom Chaka, planning staff. I have Eric here with Lincoln Electric System also to help with any questions. First want to talk about the text amendment 16003 to the design standards. This is to amend chapter 3.100, specifically mainly to deal with the street light section. The proposal is to require that all street lights in new subdivision be required to be LED. Currently, they can be high pressure sodium, but this would require all new ones to be LED. The Lincoln Electric System has been working with the city on a variety of issues, the streetlights being one of them, since 2013, and we're ready to move forward with this portion of it. I'm just going to give my real brief understanding of the difference, but LEDs are more energy efficient than the high pressure sodium. They last longer, have lower maintenance cost, and over the long run should be a benefit to the city. Upfront costs are a little bit more, averaging around $185 more per pole light than the high pressure sodium is. And so related to that is the text amendment to the subdivision ordinance, which is 16005, which allows the city to subsidize increased cost associated with new minimum required improvements. Since final plats that have already been approved are approved under the current design standards, they would not be required to put in the LED lights if they haven't already done that. So to kind of help them, or hopefully encourage them to use LED lights, the city is willing to subsidize the difference in cost between the previous light, the high pressure sodium lights, and the cost of the LED lights. And that would only be for final plats that were already approved. Maybe Eric, if you'd want to expand a little bit on the LED.
Good afternoon. Eric Steffen, Lincoln Electric System, here for Jeff Lavach. The biggest benefit for LED lighting is the maintenance savings over the life of the fixture. LEDs are tested to last at least 25 to 30 years without having a crew and a truck go out to do any kind of maintenance on them. Currently, the high pressure sodium lights, they have a bulb that will go out in 4 to 5 years. So the cost to have crews go out and do maintenance on these fixtures is reduced substantially with the LEDs. Also is light trespass. There's a lot less uplight with LED fixtures. There's a lot less backlight with LED fixtures since the actual diodes can be aimed specifically where they need to on the roadway to meet certain photometric levels. Also environmental, since we're using less electricity, it's going to save on carbon footprint and overall use of fossil fuels to energize these fixtures.
Have any questions?
Any questions? Is it a completely different fixture then? You can't use the current fixtures?
Correct. We would have to take down the old high pressure sodium and replace it with an LED fixture.
But there's no plans to do that with current fixtures, it's just new fixtures at this
Correct.
point? Okay. In some way, are we effectively transferring the cost to the developer has to pay for the new fixtures, is that right?
Correct.
And they have to pay the additional price of the light,
Yes.
but then the city gets the benefit of that, so that's why you're
Mhm.
with those that are approved, but from here on out, then those folks, it's borne by the developer.
If I have this right, and Eric, correct me. I mean, when you get a new subdivision, the developer is responsible for paying for the cost of the light and installing it. But once it's installed, then Lincoln Electric System takes over.
The ownership gets turned back to the city, and then LES would maintain the fixtures.
Okay. Any other questions?
I guess on that, any feedback from the development community?
We did send it out to the development community, our developers list. We sent out the text amendment to them, and we didn't get any feedback, really no feedback one way or the other.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And LES is the applicant, so,
Yes.
okay,
LES.
thanks. Is there anyone here wishing to testify in support of this item? Is there anyone here wishing to testify in opposition of this item? Does anyone have any questions for staff? I'd entertain a motion then.
They need to be called separately.
These would be called separately, yes. Item 4.1 is for text amendment 16003, amending the City of Lincoln design standards.
I'd entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Second?
Ms. Luston Beacom.
Austin Beecham,
Thank you.
discussion?
Sure, this seems like a good public policy that will save the city costs in the long term, and without objection from the development community, I think it's a good plan and should move forward.
Yeah, I echo that. I think that, although I think there is some cost transfer here, I think that it is overall good for the city and will continue to save money. Jerry, please call the vote.
Beecham,
Yes?
Harris,
Yes.
Sunderman,
Yes.
Hove.
Yes.
Motion carried 5-0. Okay, text amendment
Call
160.
for my vote, Jerry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Lust,
Say
I'm
yes.
sorry. 5-0. I thought that went fast. Okay, sorry about that. Text amendment 16005, amending section 26.27.005 of the Lincoln Municipal Code, as previously read.
Entertain a motion.
Move approval, Lust.
Second, Harris.
Thank you.
I think this is a good plan for the city so that people that are going to have to absorb this cost when they were not initially planning that as part of their development plan can be reimbursed by the city. And so I support this text amendment.
I echo what Janelle said. Jerry, please call the vote.
Beecham,
Yes?
Harris,
Yes.
Lust,
Yes.
Sunderman,
Yes.
and Hove.
Yes.
Motion carried 5-0. Okay, the next, we're under pre-existing special permits and related street and alley vacation, which is item 4. Whoops, I think I just skipped one. I did. Okay, let's back up to item 4.2A, change of zone 16005 from H2 Highway Business District to B5 Planned Regional Business District on property generally located at 225 North Cotner Boulevard. Staff recommendation is for approval. And item 4.2B is pre-existing use permit number 3AG to amend the boundary of the Gateway Mall use permit by adding the property at 225 North Cotner Boulevard for authority to construct up to 153 units of multifamily housing or to construct a mix of residential units and up to 36,000 square feet of commercial space, including waivers to the maximum building height from 40 feet to 55 feet, and to reduce residential parking requirements from 2 to 1.4 stalls per unit on property generally located at 225 North Cotner Boulevard. Staff recommendation is for conditional approval. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed on these items?
I see none. Andrew?
Andrew Theroff, planning staff. So this is a change of zone and amendment to use permit. I'll just present it together for discussion. So to begin, there's two areas for this change of zone. One is R2 to P, P public. This is an existing substation, and the change of zone area is like a parking lot associated with the substation. So this element of the change of zone is really just a cleanup action on the map. It's currently a public use. It was zoned residential, but the rezoning is just reflecting the current use, so that won't change anything on the ground. The other piece of it is right here, H2 to B5. B5 is a use permit district, so if this were to be rezoned to B5, it would become part of the Gateway Mall use permit. And this map shows the current Gateway Mall use permit boundary. So this would be added on the west end here, on the west side of Cotner. And here's a closer look at that specific site. It's the home real estate office right now. The applicant is looking to construct an apartment complex with up to 153 dwelling units or up to 36,000 square feet of commercial space. The idea with that is, the upper stories will be residential, and some portion of the first floor may have commercial, but the exact number hasn't been determined yet. So that's why there's some flexibility on the approval. The comprehensive plan identifies the Gateway Mall area, including this site, as a primary redevelopment node, and identifies the area for 500 to 1,000 new units constructed here. The goal of the nodes is to develop walkable mixed-use centers. So with this site, as you can imagine, there's a lot of major employers, shopping, restaurants, all within walking distance. So the idea is that, more people living on this site, they'd be able to walk to these places instead of driving across town. The applicant is looking for 2 waivers. The first is parking. For B5, the parking ratio is 2 stalls per residential unit. They're looking to reduce that to 1.4 stalls per residential unit. There's a condition attached to that. There can't be any more than 60 units in this complex that have more than 1 bedroom in them. The idea behind that is that a 1-bedroom unit, a lot of them will just have 1 car. 2-bedroom units, you can imagine most of those would have 2 cars. So to limit the amount of units that have more than 1 bedroom will help cut down on the parking. Also, kind of in the broader range, there are other zoning districts that have less stringent parking requirements. Several of the R's, the B's, one of the O districts allows just 1 stall per unit. So this 1.4 is actually above that, and it seems like a reasonable number. The other waiver is increase the height. The B5 district allows a maximum height of 40 feet. This applicant is looking to increase the height to 55 feet. The site is H2 highway commercial right now. So as it is right now, they're allowed 55 feet, but once they rezone to B5, that goes down to 40 feet. So they're looking just to return to what they have right now of a 55-foot maximum. North of the site, south of the site is that H2, so all of those properties have the 55-foot height maximum right now. To the east is Emeritus. They have, part of their building is 5 stories tall, so I mean, it's hard to say they'll be really negatively impacted by this. Do you have any questions for me? Yes.
Could you talk a little bit more how you arrived at the number 1.4 instead of going from 2 to 1, you went to 1.4?
Yeah, and that's probably something to ask the applicant more than me. I wasn't fully involved with this early on that stage, but as I said, it is a landing point between the 2, which is what's required, and 1, which is actually permitted in a lot of districts. So 1.4 seemed like a good midpoint on that.
And then I'm asking this question not actually knowing the answer at all, but is it, with regards to demographic trends and kind of housing and vehicle choices, is it still a safe assumption that a 1-bedroom is associated with only 1 vehicle? Do you know what the data is pointing at in that sense? I'm just theorizing that there might be couples without children who may downsize and live in a 1-bedroom to save money while they still have 2 cars to get to and from work.
Yeah, I guess I don't have any hard numbers, but the idea with this location is that, yes, there will be some 1-bedrooms where they'll have 2 cars. But here, even if you have, say, a couple living together, maybe they could only require 1 car. Maybe someone works at Emeritus or some other nearby employer, so someone can take the car and someone can walk to their job, or someone wants to go shopping, they can just walk. So one of the benefits of this particular site is that hopefully it would reduce the car dependence of the people that live there.
So it's the location, the walkability, sort of walkable nature of the location that's
Yeah.
causing you to planning to be okay with the lesser parking requirement.
Yeah, I mean, the expectation is that with this site, people will be hopefully walking to get to their destinations. There is a bus route nearby, so transit is an option too.
Thanks.
Andrew,
Other questions?
I do.
Kathy?
Andrew, so if we're looking at this area as both now and potential future walkability, have we looked at pedestrian access across Cotner, which is a pretty busy street, and even from the edge there all the way into the mall, having to go through a very large parking lot to get to the mall? Like, have we started talking about how are pedestrians gonna get there? How are we gonna make it safe? Where are they gonna cross Cotner?
Yeah.
How are they gonna get from there on into the mall?
That's a really good point. I think that would be the long-term redevelopment idea with the node. Right now,
Basically, let's make Paul work at his new job.
yeah, that push on to Paul for long range. But yeah, I mean, for this particular site, there is a crosswalk, I think a signalized crosswalk at R Street across Cotner, so that would be how they'd get over there.
Because I would say, you know, as we're looking, if we're really thinking that's going to be the focus of this area, then I think we do, especially if we're reducing parking, and the justification is that we're going to be making, it's going to be so walkable, then I think we need to make it walkable, and we need to make it safe and walkable, because, you know, cars travel pretty quickly on Cotner, and
Yeah, I've walked there, around there many times, and it's, I mean, there are sidewalks at least, but yeah, it's not a completely pleasant walking environment in some of those areas because there are, yeah, a lot of traffic, so.
I think that's something that we need to keep our eye on and be working with Public Works on as we're moving forward on projects like this.
Any other questions? Thanks. Applicant?
Good afternoon. My name is Mike Eckert with Civil Design Group. Here today on behalf of, I believe it's Austin Realty Investments, the Schleich family that owns this site. It's a site they've held for a long time, I think 30 plus years, originating back to when they owned Home Real Estate. They no longer do, but they maintain this site in ownership under their name, and Home Real Estate is simply the tenant. And as you may be aware, they are moving, consolidating a lot of their offices just to the west of here at around 52nd No. And so the opportunity arose to look at the site and potential reuse. The building has some functional issues and is really today probably functionally obsolete in terms of some of the layout and the way it's chopped up with a garden level area. So the Schleichs, being in the multifamily business, wanted to look at the options here, and I really commend planning for working with us. When we came in and we looked at the existing zoning, and everything we had to do would have required some form of commercial on the first floor. And although that is in your staff report as an option, they really see it as a longer term redevelopment option of the building if there needed to be some conversion at some point. They would like to do the 153 units. And so we determined that tying into the Gateway Mall use permit and with the B5 zoning would allow us to do 153 units. And so we appreciate their thought process and their attitude of how we could make this work. And so then to answer your question, Commissioner Harris, the parking. And so what the plan is today, and I apologize that I don't have any elevations or anything. We want to get through this process first, but before they spent too much time and money on architects, et cetera. But we did at least sit down with the architect and come up with floor plans. And so we know we'd have about 153 units. And 60 of those would be 2 bedrooms or a 1 bedroom with a den. And so what planning said is, I want 2 stalls for those, okay? And so we've got then 90 either efficiency units or just plain 1 bedrooms. And so we ended up with at least 1 stall for those is how the combination worked. And I think we're slightly overparked. We'll have some surface parking in, put this up. There is some surface parking in a courtyard area here. There'll be a courtyard with amenities, probably a swimming pool, and then some parking stalls here. And we haven't mastered that as to how much we can get, but I believe there's like 17 there. Because they'll have a leasing office and some of the common area spaces off the first floor, probably in that eastern wing. And so that's how we arrived at it. And I think the vision that the Schleichs have for this, and which I think meets with the comprehensive plan, if you see all the items listed there that we're supportive of what we're asking for here in the comprehensive plan in terms of a real urban, not suburban, but an urban infill multifamily building. They see it attracting 2 different but completely opposite cohorts based on this building they've done in other communities, a similar building. And that is the millennials on the younger end, but then the baby boomers on the older end that they've had a lot of traction with, as they want the ability to have a place closer to services, closer to shopping. I think the presence of the grocery stores now in this area was probably the key factor in their decision in trying to do multifamily here. And so it really does push us towards that goal of 8,000 infill residential units in the built environment here that we did in the last comprehensive plan amendment. We have met with the Masons are to our north, and they're really probably our most impacted neighbor. Fortunately, with the design of their building, they have no windows on the north side of their building, which we abut. And so I feel, are generally fine. We told them, we'd work with them during construction process too. That'd probably be the most painful for them. The STEM Gallery folks are supportive. The bank is supportive. Emeritus is supportive. In fact, Emeritus actually showed some strong interest in some corporate units for folks that they have in town for extended periods. And so we think that's an example of how this is going to work well in this area of town with the surrounding elements. So, with that, I always like to close with the reminder that went through this with the developer the other day, that they'll be writing a check for around $260,000 in impact fees for this project. That's even with the credits for the commercial space and the existing water main coming in. And so they do a quality product. They've been doing development in our community for 40 years. They have a huge investment in this community, and so they're gonna put up a good quality product. Obviously, with 2 stories of underground parking, it's going to be a very expensive building, and so the rents will probably be commensurate with that. But with that, they will. In terms of the facade treatments, I know many people have had questions and asked about that, but we are confident it's going to be a good-looking building, and we detailed that a little bit more with the Emeritus folks as they will face that wall, and went through some ideas on the materials with them, so on and so forth. So, apologize that I don't have more details at this point, like I said, but we wanted to go through the process of government approval before we got into that too much. So, be happy to answer any more questions.
Question for Mr. Eckert?
Mike, do you know how far the school is that's nearby?
I don't.
Mile?
Do you know the crossroads it's at?
Fine, and does anybody remember? I guess, anyways, I would just sort of echo what I said to Matthew, which is that, or Andrew, sorry. Which is that I think I would encourage you guys to look at walkability as you're designing the building, and then even once it's built, to stay engaged with planning and public works and the whole development of this area. If we're looking to attract baby boomers and we're looking to attract millennials, I think making this a safe, really friendly, walkable place is going to make it more marketable for your client, as
Sure.
well as just a better, safe area for everybody.
Yeah,
involved.
no, and I agree with you. I think that in time there's going to be some things on Cotner per the node development part of the comp plan. We think that closing this intersection or this entrance here will help in terms of that. And so, and we may be the proponent of Public Works putting in more of a striped, dedicated crosswalk there, because there really isn't anything today. And so,
Gotta walk
otherwise,
pretty
we'll actually, the sidewalks will get redone so that we have better streetscape spacing than exists today. But we'll have, serving all directions from there. But I think crossing the Cotner P Street traffic is really pretty minimal. But this may be a good opportunity for us to push those striped crossings,
Right,
so
if we're
they're a little
gonna
more
develop,
evident.
then now's the time to let's start thinking about it on this front end.
Yep.
So, okay.
Other questions? Thanks, Mike.
Okay.
Is there anyone here wishing to testify in support of this item? Is there anyone here wishing to testify in opposition to this item? Do we have any other questions folks have? Alrighty, Jerry, would you?
Sure.
Call 'em
Okay,
separately.
we'll call change of zone 16005 from H2 to B5 on property generally located at 225 North Cotner. Staff recommendation is for approval.
Move approval, Lust.
Second, Harris.
Discussion?
I think this is a good project for the area. It's nice to see residential development in kind of the commercial center. I think that's what we've wanted to encourage under the comprehensive plan, and I think this is a good project for the location.
Yeah, I would just echo that. I think I compliment the Schleichs for proposing this. It doesn't look like it would really fit, but I think in the long run it will fit, and it'll be a good project for that area. So, Jerry, would you please call the vote?
Yes. Beecham?
Yes?
Harris?
Yes.
Lust?
Yes.
Sunderman?
Yes.
Ho.
Yes.
Motion carried, 5-0. Item 4.2B is pre-existing use permit number 3AG to amend the boundary of the Gateway Mall use permit by adding the property at 225 North Cotner Boulevard. Staff recommendation is for conditional approval.
Move approval, Lust.
Second. Harris?
Thank you. Any other discussion?
I would just say, I asked about the parking, out of curiosity. We've been talking about demographics and choices and, transportation and housing. I don't have any concerns, and I think this is a really good infill project, so.
Thank you.
in
Jerry,
support.
please call the vote.
Beecham?
Yes?
Harris?
Yes.
Lust?
Yes.
Sunderman?
Yes.
Ho.
Yes.
Motion carried, 5-0. Okay, the next two items are related. Item 4.3A is street and alley vacation number 16001 to vacate a portion of the North 50th Street public right-of-way between the south right-of-way line of St. Paul Avenue and the north right-of-way line of Baldwin Avenue, generally located at North 50th Street between St. Paul Avenue and Baldwin Avenue. And item 4.3B is pre-existing use permit number 23H, amending special permit number 23 to expand boundaries for construction of a 3-story education building of approximately 75,000 square feet, more or less, to include additional parking on the northeast corner of 49th Street and Baldwin Avenue, and a waiver of the 35-foot height restriction applicable in the R6 zoning district to allow up to 46 feet in height on property generally located at North 50th Street and Huntington Avenue. Staff recommendation for the street and alley vacation is conformance with the comprehensive plan, and staff recommendation for the pre-existing special permit is conditional approval. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed on these items?
My husband is on the Board of Governors of Wesleyan University, and so I've attended a few dinners and other events where these plans were referenced.
Thank you. Anything else? Jerry, or Andrew, go ahead.
Andrew Theroff, planning staff. So I'll begin with talking about amending the Wesleyan special permit. On the screen here, special permit this is the special permit boundary. The amendment areas.
Second.
Sorry. Oops. Here, we got it.
There we go.
All right, so this is the proposed boundary. The amendment areas are here along the west side. This is a zoom in for the proposed site plan. The big item here is the proposed science building. It would be.
Excuse me, can you,
Yes.
it's really hard to read on our copies. Can you point out the streets to us so we know exactly which streets you're talking about in this section?
Yeah. Just in the western area.
Just like the north boundary of the big L and the south boundary. I just can't read them on my copy. I want to make sure I know.
So this is St. Paul,
Okay,
Baldwin, and then 50th would be right here.
thanks.
So the big item with this amendment is the proposed science building, 75,000 square feet, 3 stories. You can see that right here. It would be essentially in the 50th Street right away. Going along with that is some associated parking, the parking lot here. And then the boundary of the special permit would be extended right here to allow for more parking. And then these 2 parking lots would basically be reconfigured and moved a bit to allow space for the new science building. So those are all the proposed amendments to the special permit. They're looking for 1 waiver. It would be a height waiver. This is in the R6 district, so the maximum height would be 35 feet. The waiver is looking to increase the height to 46 feet. If you look around the area, Lincoln Manor right here is 4 stories tall. We have the church here, it's about 3 stories tall. To the south, there's a student housing that's 3 stories tall. So So the increased height seems to meet the character of the area. The other item to discuss with this is the street vacation. So this exhibit just shows the general street grid in University Place. Right here is what they'd be looking to vacate. It'd be 50th Street between St. Paul and Baldwin. As you can see, University Place has a pretty well-developed grid system, but there is Nebraska Wesleyan right in the middle of that interrupts several streets. So if this street were to be vacated, it would end up pushing more local traffic over to 49th Street. So this would reduce connectivity in the neighborhood and also increase traffic on 49th Street. And this is just a closer look at the actual vacation area. So 50th Street would turn into Baldwin on the south, and then it would turn here into St. Paul on the north. So there's a few things to think about with this vacation. The comp plan provides some guidance on that. The comp plan supports an efficient transportation system that allows people to move from place to place in a direct route as possible. It also says that existing neighborhoods, we should try to maintain the existing street network. So those are definitely some negative items related to this project. At the same time, the comprehensive plan says that we should support the expansion of educational facilities. And of course, Nebraska Wesleyan is a very significant educational facility for the city. As long as that expansion is done in a way that is responsible and respectful to the neighborhood. So what is, what's respectful to the neighborhood? In 2004, there was a North 48th Street / University Place plan put together. It involved neighborhood residents, stakeholders, business owners, and then of course the university. That plan identified the area west of the existing campus from 50th to 48th Street as an area for future campus expansion. It doesn't address, closing any streets, but it does say that, we can expect in the future that would be Wesleyan's growth area. So they are following that with this expansion. That plan also has a kind of broadly conceptual development plan for the whole University Place and 48th Street corridor area. It shows 50th Street as remaining open, but again, that plan says it'll need further refinement and design before any implementation. So that's not meant to be anything that's set in stone. So kind of to sum this up, there are several negatives with this, mainly the lack of connectivity that's going to occur in the neighborhood and the increased traffic on 49th Street. But Wesleyan is a significant academic institution for the city. It's important to the University Place neighborhood. This expansion is needed for them to continue to be successful. And planning staff feels that the positives of that outweigh any negatives from closing the street. Do we have any questions?
I do, Andrew.
Yeah.
No?
We've talked about 50th Street as kind of, I guess, an existing through street in the area, but 50th Street doesn't go all the way through to Holdridge. It dead ends well before you get to Holdridge Street, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's I think it's University Place Park is what it's called. There's the park on the south side. So.
Other questions? Kathy?
So have we had meetings with neighbors, meetings with St. Paul? Do we know what people are thinking about this? I mean, yes, St. Paul is bigger than 3 stories, but I mean, this is a very large building to put right next to a really historic building up there. So I'd like to just know, what the thoughts are of the neighbors around.
Yeah, so the university has had several meetings with neighbors. Most of those were a year ago, so I wasn't personally involved, but I think Tom is probably going to speak on that. But First United Methodist to the north, I believe they support it now, and I guess I can't speak on the neighborhood stuff.
I didn't know if you'd been at any of that stuff. I'll just ask Tom.
Other questions? Thanks, Andrew. Tom?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Tom Houston. My address is 233 South 13th, Suite 1900 here in Lincoln. Appearing before you today on behalf of Nebraska Wesleyan University. With me today is Tishgate Jones, who is the Vice President of Finance for the university. Andrew did a good job of explaining what the project is. It is a 75,000 square foot new science building that will house various departments of Nebraska Wesleyan University, really required by the increasing programming for the students and the interdisciplinary approach to the education of the students. The project would be ideally located from the design perspective, working with our architects in the 50th Street right-of-way as shown by the schematic design that's on the overhead. A couple things that I want to talk about. I want to talk about the special permit, and I also want to talk about the street vacation, and then I want to talk about the process that we went through, because it's been 12 months that we've been working with the neighbors on this entire process. First, in connection with the special permit, prior to 1989, there was no special permit process for Nebraska Wesleyan University. In 1994 was the first pre-existing special use permit that was issued for Nebraska Wesleyan. And prior to that time, there was no really regulation as a specially permitted use within this area. Since that time, there have been multiple revisions to the special permit, and this is another one in that continuing effort. In particular, with regard to the staff report, and I believe I agree with Andrew in the description of the support by the comprehensive plan for this project. The comprehensive plan does support the necessary expansion of educational facilities as long as they're being sensitive to the existing neighborhoods. And I believe, as demonstrated by the process that has been pursued here, we can demonstrate that process has been sensitive to the neighborhoods. Andrew also mentioned that 2004 plan, it does encourage Nebraska Wesleyan to have its growth occur west of campus. But more importantly, I think it also discourages Nebraska Wesleyan to grow to the north into the existing residential neighborhood or to the south into the existing residential neighborhood. And really 56th Street on the east is kind of a natural barrier. So the west direction is really the only possibility for growth. The other thing that I wanted to mention with regard to the site plan is that we have requested the height waiver, and as Andrew mentioned, we think that's consistent with the existing heights of properties within the area. And I think we also believe that locating the building in the 50th Street right-of-way helps shift that impact away from the neighbors to the west. The parking issue is something that weighed into the decision on where to locate the building. The original plan as submitted, and as you can imagine, at any university campus, every parking stall is very valuable, and we try to preserve those parking stalls to the extent possible. So the original plan that was submitted really indicated that we would have a net gain of 13 parking stalls. There is an issue that we do need to address. The site-specific conditions 2.2 suggests that we need to reconfigure the parking lot because of the potential impact of the backing maneuver from a row of stalls that would require them to back into the alley. We can do that. We can remove this one row of stalls that will lose about 18 parking stalls. We have two other options in my mind, and one of them would involve the potential vacation of the alley. Obviously, that would involve a discussion between us and Lincoln Manor, and also a discussion between the university and First United Methodist Church, because that's part of the negotiation that had occurred. I think a more likely avenue for us, we can ask for a deviation from the access management policy to avoid that conflict, because I think preserving those 18 stalls would be important. With regard to the street vacation, one of the questions that typically is asked, why are we choosing this location? Andrew had mentioned connectivity. Well, we believe it's important from a pedestrian connectivity that we vacate 50th Street because of the potential hundreds, if not thousands, of students that will be visiting this building on a daily basis. We also chose this location to minimize the adverse impacts on the church to the north with regard to the shade impact and site visual impacts. We also chose this location to preserve that parking lot and also to make sure that we could form a quadrangular with the existing old main building. So lastly, in wrapping up, I do want to talk about the process that we went through. We first had a meeting with the University Place Community Organization in March of 2015, so that was over 12 months ago. And at that time, there was real concerns expressed about this location and the building. And so for the last 12 months, there have been multiple discussions have been held. First of all, we've attended, I believe, 5 meetings with the University Place Community Organization, either at their board meetings. We also went to their annual meeting on January 31st of this year and explained it to the entire membership. We also had or at least one committee meeting with a committee that was formed with UPCO to work with us on this issue. And moreover, the university worked with the church, First United Methodist Church, over the last 12 months. They have 8 meetings to talk about really the impact in the entire neighborhood and moving forward. And they really tried to address several things. One was to deal with traffic circulation in the area. One was deal with parking in the area, and also was dealing with directional growth. Which ways is the church going to grow, and which ways the university is going to grow? So those negotiations ended up with a memorandum of understanding that really provides a guide for both the church and the university moving forward. In addition, there were many other individual conversations that occurred between other business owners and individuals in the area. I think you have letters of support in your packet, 9 different letters of support from various businesses and individuals regarding support for Nebraska Wesleyan in this effort. So with that, there's some things that we have to get done before we can go on to the city council. I don't think I need to go into those here, but if you're interested, I can certainly go into them. But with that, I'd ask for your support of these applications, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Questions for Tom? Go ahead.
Sorry. Tom, what was the feedback you guys received about the design of the building? Because we've got a very historic portion of campus here, a very historic church, and then this is a very modern building, and it's a conundrum because obviously science, technology, you want to kind of be cutting edge and new, but at the same time, putting a very modern building in the middle of a historic neighborhood has a real visual impact.
One of the concerns that was expressed in March of 2015 was really the western facade. And these are schematic drawings. I mean, we're not done with design. In fact, we've asked the architect to suspend until we have to have a site before we can design a building.
Right.
We don't know where the building's going to be located. I mean, we want it to be in this 50th Street right away. So one of the things that we did ask the architect to do is to make the west facade more inviting as an entrance into the building from the parking lot, and that has been done. We shared that with the UPCO board of directors, I think back in December, and they were very pleased to see the changes that were made. But you're right, there is a juxtaposition of a more modern building in an existing neighborhood. But the architect that was engaged is the Shelley Flynn architectural firm from Pittsburgh, which has a national reputation in designing university science buildings specifically for these uses, and it's been widely supported within the university campus.
And I don't doubt that there's a lot of support within the university campus. I guess my concern is, to my mind, obviously we're going to run into problems whenever you have a university surrounded by a community.
Sure.
There's nowhere to grow except kind of in the crevices. But then that makes it, to me, more critical that what we put in really is, I mean, we've used the word respectful many times. And so I'm having trouble reconciling a very modern building with being respectful of the area. And I'm wondering if there's a way to continue to involve St. Paul's and the neighborhood in some of the ideas around design.
And certainly Pastor Moffat's here, and I think he intends to speak, so you can ask him. But I understand from those conversations that resulted in the memorandum of understanding that the church was also supportive of the design.
Okay.
And you do raise one point. I mean, the prior item on the agenda showed one of the questions about the connectivity is the block length question, but you look at other institutional developments we have around the community, and the staff report talks about the University of Lincoln, the East Campus, and also the downtown campus. Those are obvious. But it occurred to me you also need to look at like Union College. I think that has the same issue. I think Bryan West has the same issue. Bryan East has the same issue. And the prior agenda item with the Gateway campus. We have multiple institutional campuses around the city where, yes, as they grow, it does decrease the vehicular connectivity, but not the pedestrian connectivity.
Right, so how do
and that's
we
the point.
engage that
Right.
pedestrian?
So, to answer your question, we have not heard any specific negative comments about the design of the building, other than that one western facade question that we think we addressed to make it more inviting.
And I'm sorry, I don't seem to have in my packet either that or, forgive me, I have a migraine, so I may have misplaced it, but the letters of support, do you guys have that in your packet? You said we had several letters of support
Well, there were
from
9.
neighbors?
There were 9 letters of support.
Do you have that in your packet? And
We did get some emails.
Yeah.
did we?
Yeah.
Maybe I just missed them because I wasn't feeling well.
Well, in the volume of email in today's world, that's easy to do. I saw them come across, but yeah, there were
We
9.
don't have any printed up for today's meeting, do we, Jerry? I know sometimes you have those.
I know I have them in my file. I can hand them to you.
I just wouldn't mind taking a quick look
I
at
know
them.
I received them by email.
Okay.
Other
I
questions?
don't have those down here.
Tom,
That's
can
all
you,
right.
can you address just how this helps with pedestrian connectivity on the campus?
Well, the university campus has approximately 2,200 students now, and they really will be self-contained. I mean, there's additional housing on the northeast portion of campus, and most of the students will just obviously be walking to and from classes. And having the 50th Street closed to permit safe pedestrian access, relationship to the student union, relationship to the Old Main is really what the objective was from a design perspective.
Thank you.
Anything else for Tom?
Thank you. I'll look for those letters. I'll see if I
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Is there anyone here wishing to testify in support of this item?
My name is Lynn Ayers, Ayers, and I'm a member at First United Methodist Church. I'm vice chair of our board of trustees. I'm also past president of UPCO and live in the neighborhood.
Give us your address.
I'm at 944 North 55th, so 56 and Vine. First United Methodist Church in Nebraska Wesleyan has a history that goes back over 125 years. This is a partnership that we value greatly. And because of that history and because of wanting to move forward together in that partnership, we've met considerably with Dr. Oles and with Tish Gay Jones to discuss the project, and I probably attended most of those 8 meetings. The concerns around the design were addressed. Initially, the back side of that building was just a solid wall, and that was not what we wanted to be looking at as a church, and so that there were some design elements that were changed. We were able to enter into a memorandum of understanding with Wesleyan that spoke to the need for shared parking around, also discussed future growth, also discussed the mutual desire to not have St. Paul Avenue become a street that is also closed at some point down the road, as that was part of a plan at some point. And we are both in agreement that we don't want St. Paul to be closed, especially with the closure of 50th Street. But as a representative of the church, and Pastor Moffett will speak as well, we are in support of this proposal and in support Wesleyan in moving forward with this plan.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you. Go ahead, Larry.
I'm Larry Moffett. I'm the senior pastor at First United Methodist Church. My residence is at 5324 Madison, and the church's address is at 2723 North 50th Street. What Lynn said is exactly the way the process has happened, and it's been over a year that the church has been talking with leadership at Nebraska Wesleyan about this. And there's been a variety of things that we have gone through in the process of talking about the sets of issues here. We know that, for example, the closing of one block of 50th Street is not particularly optimal. However, we also know that the current situation in the neighborhood where parking is more than at a premium, it is at a crisis standpoint now, means that we needed to collaborate on parking as well as on future growth plans for both Nebraska Wesleyan and for the church. Nebraska Wesleyan and First Church are completely organically separated, even though the same people founded both organizations and started the city of University Place, which was later annexed by the city of Lincoln in the 1920s. They were Methodist people who came from all over the state of Nebraska to start in a new town with a university, a church, and a community. And the plan was, as you know if you've been through the streets of University Place, to design something that was so close that people paid attention to each other. Houses and businesses and the university itself and the church literally have always lived on top of each other from the very beginning. I've heard some people who know a lot more about urban planning than I do call that now the new urbanism, and we've been living that for 129 years. There have been massive efforts at collaboration between Nebraska Wesleyan and First Church at points and times during those 129 years, even though we're separate organically. First was, for the first 20 years, First Church did not build a building. but asked the people in the hometowns where the people had come from to send money to keep Old Main from going back to the bank during crop failures and bank failures and the recessions of the 1890s and early 1900s. And then a little bit later, when an unfortunate situation happened at First Church in 1993, when a corner of the original building that was built in 08 and 09 collapsed, Nebraska Wesleyan invited First Church to meet in O'Donnell Auditorium for a period of about a year and a half while the building was completely restructured and retrofitted with structural supports, and to the tune of about $2 million. The church wants Nebraska Wesleyan to grow. There's almost universal opinion, supportive of that as anybody can be in a church with a lot of members with a lot of opinions. The understanding is that the future of Nebraska Wesleyan and the growth of Nebraska Wesleyan will impact positively on the growth and stability of First United Methodist Church and of the whole University Place neighborhood and really all of Northeast Lincoln in general. So the idea of a major investment in the neighborhood is extremely positive because, as you probably well know, there are a set of challenges in the University Place neighborhood that we wanted to address in the whole process as well. And we want to do the part of everything we can do with ourselves as a congregation, with UPCO, which we support in many different ways, University Place Community Organization, with Nebraska Wesleyan, to see the neighborhood grow and develop. Part of the conversation got enlarged a little bit early on so that the issue of parking would be a major consideration. And there have been a number of things in the Memorandum of Understanding that Mr. Houston referred to that address that. We also have, as part of the Memorandum of Understanding, the agreement that Nebraska Wesleyan and First Church will work on upgrading some housing in the neighborhood along with city and nonprofit organizations. We've already had some conversations regarding that. And we also know that Nebraska Wesleyan does indeed need to follow that original 2004 plan in moving as it can toward 48th Street for visibility and for a variety of other reasons. First Church also needs to acquire a little bit of property, and we've identified potential zones for growth where both the university and the church can collaborate. There have been, in addition to the 8 meetings that have been referred to, there have been multiple meetings inside the congregation, lots of meetings of the Board of Trustees, practically at a monthly basis, talking about all of the things that were related issues and things that people felt like needed to be a part of the conversation. And then periodically there have been members of the church council who have met regularly to talk about all the things that the trustees have talked about. The culmination after the positive vote from the Board of Trustees that went to the full church council, and that was a unanimous vote of our church council to be supportive of these plans.
Thank you. Any questions,
I
Kathy?
have just a couple.
Sure.
And I have-
You had mentioned parking. I used to take my kids to kinder music at First United Methodist,
All
and so
right,
I
yes.
know how tricky parking is on weekdays for you.
It is.
Are you feeling comfortable then with this plan, that it will not add more people to an area? Are you going to have to fight off your parking even more, or are you feeling okay about that?
We have some plans to increase parking ourselves as a result of some of the agreements in the Memorandum of Understanding, but also that parking lot to be developed on the east side of 50th Street, which you saw in the map there. The Memorandum of Understanding allows for specific events such as funerals or daytime programming to have some reserved spaces for people who are using community events and other church events at First Church to use those places. And that will be a big factor in easing that parking situation. The fact that there is not a loss of parking to the south side of the church, which is the main entrance to the church, is a positive outcome of all of the conversations since late January of 2015.
Okay.
And are are you supportive of Wesleyan's request, I guess, and Mr. Houston's presentation that condition 2.2 be eliminated so that they can have that little extra, I guess, L section of the parking?
Oh,
And maybe you don't know for sure.
No,
what that-
that's off of the alleyways between, yes. And part of the conversation in the memorandum of understanding is, as I remember it, please correct me if I'm wrong, is that alley will be a way to connect some of the very, very local traffic there between the church and the campus, so that not everything will have to be carried by 49th Street.
And then you probably heard my comments about my concern with the design, and this is something we struggle with in all of our historical areas of the community, or we have places like the church that are 100 years old, and then we also want to attract young people and show, the modern millennium. Can you just talk about your comfort and the congregation's comfort with, I know it sounds like it's better than it was a brick wall. Are you comfortable with the modern design? I mean, if you had your druthers, would you like to continue to be involved I know there's still a long way to go in how this building is gonna look, but.
Well, we've been very generously invited in conversations with the architect at various points in times. Mr. Celli has also done renovations of historic churches, particularly in the northeast part of the United States. So he was particularly sensitive to the architectural gem that First Church is. It's a 107-year-old building, and it has elements of architecture from Jerusalem, Athens, and Greece, intentionally designed by a Lincoln architect to show all of that in one building. One of the things that he did when he moved the building a little bit to the east, which then took the one block of 50th Street, is he suggested, which Nebraska Wesleyan is supportive of the main entrance and pass-through area of the building being on the north side, which is close to the church. So the parking on the west side of the building and the entrance to the rest of campus, the walking entrance to the rest of campus, goes really close to St. Paul Avenue. And he designed some common space in the building with lots of glass and lots of community gathering places. The idea with STEM, with new science buildings, is to make science not a secret, but to get it out in the open where people can have community and see what's going on in the laboratories and in the classrooms and in the lecture halls. The lecture halls in the current science building are already used by the community for everything from an international arts festival to lectures when people come on campus, and I can't imagine but what the lecture halls in the new building would also be a great addition to the community. And the glass that's now contemplated on the north side of the building seems to give a reflection kind of capability for the classic architecture of First Church, so that there's almost a conversation between landmark, I would call legacy type of architecture, and the new and the modern architecture, which I think reflects the kind of continuing conversation between faith and science in the best way. I know that he designed it so that it could have that same kind of a conversation between Old Main, which is incredibly historic in its appearance, and then the front part of the science building that angles to the southeast and faces it. So those were some of the things that our architect and Mr. Celli, along with the Vice President Tish Gade Williams and I, had the chance to talk about at some length throughout the whole process.
Is First United Methodist on the Historic Register? I can't remember.
I don't believe we're officially on the Historic Register of Places. We do treat it as a treasure and a landmark. The congregation is working on a variety of things in addition to the $2 million restructuring and refitting process that was undertaken from 1993 and then finally paid off in 2007. We now have an addition. We've done rebuilding of the dome. We've done re-roofing since I've been the pastor there in 2006. We've done parts of the building with major upgrades. And we now are developing plans for the north part of the building, which was built in 1955, to have additional community space and additional elevator to 4 levels. And that's going to be well over $1 million, if not $1.5 million capital campaign process.
Thank you.
You bet.
Anything else? Janelle, did you have anything else? Anyone else? Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here wishing to testify in support of this item?
Cheryl Snyder, 3500 Faulkner. I'm here to support the project that you've been hearing about. I have a rather long history with Nebraska Wesleyan and with the University Place community, and I'm also a member of the Board of Governors of Nebraska Wesleyan. And this project will be a great enhancement for both the campus and for University Place, and I ask for your support. Questions?
Any questions? Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify in support of this item?
Hi there, my name's Chris Erickson, local developer. We own the shopping center.
Could you give us your address, please?
Sure. I'm actually live in Omaha, so 16755 Francis Street, Omaha, Nebraska 68130. We own the shopping center at the corner of 48th Street and Layton Ave. And then we also own and operate the car wash that's located right on the corner there as well. So we have both business interests and real estate interests in the community, and own about 11 acres of land, 120,000 square feet of retail space. I can echo the fact that Wesleyan has been having conversations with locals there for over a year. I was at the UPCO annual meeting last year. At the UPCO annual meeting this year, the project was discussed both times. I did feel like there was a change in the neighborhood approach to the project or perspective of the project between the first meeting, which was kind of the introduction of shutting down 50th Street, to now. I felt like there was a lot more support the second time. I am very supportive of them taking this action in this neighborhood. And the reason I am so supportive of it, I would say, is primarily because of the economic engine that Wesleyan is for the University Place neighborhood, and how big a part of that growth is in the community. It's really important to me that the employment and the students be supported and be able to continue to grow. When there's success there, be able to foster that. And I understand for sure how the folks nearby could have concerns with right-of-way being closed down and stopping vehicular access across there. But I've also seen that in other educational institutional issues, where when you have large volumes of people crossing streets with vehicular access, it starts to cause not only frustration on the part of the motorists, but also students hustling to class, not paying as close attention as they should, and does create safety concerns. So I'm supportive of it for that reason. I'm also supportive for the safety of the students. I'm also supportive of it just in general because of the economic engine that and importance of that to the future success of the University Place neighborhood.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Erickson? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here wishing to testify in support of this item? Is there anyone here wishing to testify in opposition of this item?
Good afternoon. My name is Gary Bohati. I live at 5429 Cleveland Avenue. And the area that is proposed on 50th Street to shut down, I just want to say that basically between 48th Street and 56th Street, which run north-south, and Layton Street and Adams are the area that we're talking about for as far as parking, the community in there. That's the area that's going to get really affected, because 50th Street does go up one block past Layton Street to the south, which may not get a lot of travel, but there is the Dairy Queen, some food places, the car wash. There's traffic to the gas station on 48th Street. By closing the 50th Street off, basically is just going to take a chunk out of our neighborhood
It's going to increase the traffic that's going to be on Baldwin and it's going to be on Madison, because Madison is one block to the north, and that is already a heavily traveled street. And if people that have been on can realize that there's parking on one side of the street only, and the street does narrow, so you can barely get 3 vehicles down that street for traffic currently. They've been talking about how that they're going to put some more parking in, which is needed, and I can reflect on that really well because behind me they purchased all the homes where I live currently to the south, and they put a parking lot in, and of course, like everything, it didn't go well. They had flooding in my backyard, so and so, and the responsible party was always said that it was the developer was going to take care of this, and Wesleyan, would say, well, you need to talk to the developer. Well, I talked to the state conservation department, who said that they didn't put in retainers for the surface soil, which flooded out and blah, blah. And of course, they ended up doing it. But once again, it all came down to, it was the developer's situation. We had no representation from Wesleyan University whatsoever when this lot went in. When they built up the property, nobody said they're going to build the property 3.5 feet to push water. They ended up have to put a drain in because it was flooding so bad. With taking out this street here, which, like I said, they put in the parking lot because premium, I was just told earlier, idea was a premium or a crisis situation. And it is a crisis situation. Parking's terrible. Then I heard from up here for it that there's going to be hundreds or thousands of people going to go to the science building. Hundreds or thousands of people from them, not me. That's what their estimate is. People are going to be going there. Where are they parking? If they're coming, they definitely aren't walking. And there is no, from those areas, our neighborhood, our roads are narrow. So where are these cars going? Now, for as far as church goes and stuff, they get their Sunday, they're parking. There is some parking. They have to walk away because, like I said, there is premium parking there, so it's really hard to park. And the other thing is they also talk about the historic area and the building, which I'm glad to hear because it is going to be a new building put in there. And if you've traveled, you get to see that it's, it's a historic area with their archways and everything, and the church on the corner. But now you're talking about taking the main thing that goes by the church and everything for that area is 50th Street. And now you want to remove 50th Street. So now the only way to see that is if they steadily grow to 48th Street, you might be able to go ahead and then park somewhere and then walk that 2-3 blocks to go look at this stuff, whatever remains afterward. Because as far as the papers I received, I really don't know exactly how the building's getting set other than what I saw here earlier. And I didn't have any design. I haven't had any notification that for as far as that we were notified a year ago that this was all going to be 50th Street. Those notifications, I guess, must have been just posted in the papers. I don't know where the notifications were because myself, my neighbors, I'm here today. I had 6 of my neighbors I talked. Not everybody can make it. Just my wife and I and my neighbor, Lady Rose, could make it today. And we're up here because we're concerned because if the parking wasn't relieved by this huge parking lot put behind us, recently we still have our streets packed all the time. And there's always constantly some trash. And now we're talking about taking another street out that goes north-south, and let's face it, in Lincoln, if you want to go north or south in Lincoln on any street, it's difficult. But in our neighborhood, you just keep cutting out the blocks. There's only 2 there now. You only have 49th and 50th. That's it. Otherwise, you're going to have to run over to 56, jump on a main street, or run over to 48th Street and get on there. And there is a light right at, I believe it's off of St. Paul that's currently there, which is needed because 48th Street, the traffic's supposed to slow, but they don't slow much. So that's a kind of a tough street to get on. Now, 56th Street isn't so bad. But I'm here to say that the parking issue, everybody says they're going to be putting parking in. I think the parking issue needs to be first on the list. And then, of course, the design of the building should be the second thing on the list so it doesn't affect the neighborhood for what we're seeing. We are an older neighborhood. I understand that, but that doesn't mean we don't want to have our neighborhood stay the same. Nobody wants their neighborhood. And I know that Wesleyan must grow. I understand that. But I don't know if they're addressing, maybe that's just a small issue with everybody else. But to me, being in the neighborhood, it's not a small issue. It's a major issue. That parking is a major issue. And I'd like to see that addressed before anything else is addressed. I mean, and I agree about the building, but the parking issue it's so extreme that's why I'm here today. I don't know if you have any questions for me, but that's basically what I wanted to say today.
Where do you live in relation to this project?
Show us on the map.
Can you show us?
Yeah. I'm going to have to go to back map. Let's see. I live right here off of Cleveland, and then Madison's over here with the Wesleyan football stadium. Then there's short block for the new additions for the apartments or whatever they built, the 3-4 story just recently. Then straight across the street is where they put in the parking area. They took all the buildings out here and put parking in on the alley. And this is, like I said, they put it over here. But like I said, it's just, Madison is just it's hard. Most people won't even go down Madison. The traffic and the going up and down the parking is so crazy here. I can't tell you about how it is over here on Huntington, but I do know that on the north side it's very busy, and the only way through is unless you jump all the way out over to 48th Street to get through here. Right now is 50th Street because 49th Street is narrow. There's parking, on both sides, but the street is not as wide. So
And,
you can get through
but
cars.
this project is.
This project is right over here.
Okay,
The project they're
yeah.
talking about would be right here, 50th Street, right here. This is where the project is gonna go. Take out 50th Street right here.
Okay. I think maybe the reason you didn't get the notification was you weren't in that direct vicinity, but we'd have to check with the planning department for that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, but what I'm saying is that the affected people, basically on this map, is a little bit, I'm concerned is that, I'm not sure about the south side, but I know that all of us on the north side, there is quite a bit of traffic cutting through 50th Street. We'd rather take 50th Street, there's a Walgreens over there, there's food places, and of course, you always can take 50th Street just to get over here onto Layton Street, and you can run Layton to the light if you're gonna go southbound. And that's the problem, we're cutting everything off to go southbound. That's the only last 2 streets remaining.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Bahati?
One question, are you opposed to amending the special permit to build the science building and the vacation, or only?
No, I'm not
one-
against the science building being
vacation?
built. I'm just opposed that, I'm looking for the parking, because I knew that there's gonna be, it's gonna grow, Weston's gonna grow, but to cut down the street, there's no, they wanna take the street out, to build this. Well, that's just another piece, and of course, I know they've always said they wanna get to 48th Street, they'd like to buy everything out to get there, to have a front. Okay, that's, because they wanna get into the business district down there, which is fine.
So it's the vacation of the street that bothers you
The
the most?
case of the street is what's bothering me. They're gonna build, the building's gonna get built no matter what. But also the parking, like I said, I would like to address the parking on that when they do build it, because it is growing, everything's growing. But they don't talk about building this, nice couple parking garage or 2-story deals so they can go up with it a little bit, because they have the ability to do that. Instead, we're gonna build a building that's gonna bring many more people to the area, which is fine, but where are they gonna park? And people, like I said, the students, it was supposed to alleviate all the parking that I've seen in the last 20-some years I've been there. Every time they add one, it just brings it away from like northeast, farther away, because currently they may be walking 7 to 10 blocks to get to school. Because everybody drives and there isn't that much, I see a lot of foot traffic all the time walking. So I'm assuming they're parking on the other side of where I'm at, and I'm on the corner, so I'm assuming they're coming from 1-2 blocks away from me.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here wishing to testify in opposition to this item?
My name is Paula Bohati, 5429 Cleveland. I'm the wife. The only thing that I want to add to that is when we went down 50th today, we counted cars. There were probably 30 cars. Same thing he's already saying. Where are all these cars going to go? And you're talking about even more people. So not only where are these 30 cars going to go, where are the additional people going to go? So I'm just adding to what he's saying. But we counted probably 30 cars that are parked on the street currently. So where are they going to go?
Thank you. Any questions? Is there anyone else here wishing to testify in opposition to this item? Do we have staff questions?
I do.
Come on up.
I do have one thing to add. We have the letters of support that Tom had mentioned in case you didn't get a chance to see them.
Thank you.
Andrew, can you address condition 2.2 and why staff feels it's necessary?
Let me get it pulled up here. That's the parking condition, correct? That's the one with the parking on the alleyway, correctly? Yeah. So right now, the configuration shown on the site plan shows cars that would be backing directly into the alleyway, and that's not permitted per the access management policy. So they would either need to reconfigure the parking lot to remove those spaces, or get a deviation from the Director of Public Works, or they would need to vacate that alley, so it would become a private driveway.
Okay, so but could we amend condition 2.2 to say that if they got that access management waiver from Public Works, that they could have the parking lot in that manner?
We could, yes. Is that, you're seeking the deviation? Is that gonna be the, okay.
All right, thanks.
Andrew, can you talk about the numbers? How many people the Science Center is expected to bring on a daily basis, and how many parking spaces we're adding with these new parking?
Well, that's part of the purpose for the point 2.2 is that we don't exactly know how many parking spaces we're adding or losing, because the parking as shown is probably not going to work unless the deviation is received. I think it was 13 net spaces they were adding for off-street parking with this, if the parking as shown works. But then again, as was mentioned earlier, we're losing somewhere between 20 and 25 on-street spots in that spot of 50th Street. So that's something to consider. Regarding parking, with this special permit, there's no specific parking ratio or parking requirement to that. So we kind of left it as something that could be added as a condition, something that doesn't have to be added beforehand, because the specific number isn't necessarily critical to this special permit. But in terms of the number of people visiting the science building, I'd probably have to leave that to Tom.
I'm guessing though it's gonna be more than a net of 13, right? I mean, it does
Of
sound.
students
Yeah, I mean,
going?
we're talking about bringing a 3-story building, and so we really are looking at a big impact here if we're only adding a little bit of parking.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that would be a question for Tom in terms of, I'm not sure if the plan is that Wesleyan's going to expand enrollment with this building or what, so.
Okay, but you, as a staff member, felt comfortable that this parking was adequate for the traffic we'd be, because we always look at traffic when we're looking at usage and stuff, so the usage for this building, you felt comfortable that we have enough parking to be adequate for the usage for the building?
Yeah, so the way we look at it with a special permit is just, campus-wide enough parking. And when you look at over the entire campus, the impact of one building is, not that great.
Any other questions?
Yeah, sorry, I have one more. We heard some testimony about 49th Street and how tight that is, and now we're eliminating 50th. Has there been any, I know this sounds bad considering we're so concerned about parking, but has there been discussion about changing the parking there so there's only parking on one side to make it, it's a conundrum, but I'm just curious what was considered as you guys were looking at options.
Not that I'm aware of, but I guess I should add that, yes, 49th Street is very tight right now. There's parking on both sides, and generally if there's...
So really it's probably like one car,
someone's going to be
taking turns
queuing on
kind
one
of thing.
side if there's two cars going back and forth, so yeah, that is definitely something
And
to consider.
50th it's 2-lane, right? It's
Yeah.
2 full lane.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? Thanks, Andrew.
Again, Tom Houston, on behalf of Nebraska Wesleyan, I think I left the wrong impression. Because currently, the student population at the Nebraska Wesleyan is approximately 2,200 students. Nebraska Wesleyan's not anticipating student population growth because of this building. What this building is really designed for is for the expanded programming for the existing students. So we're not anticipating a huge student population growth because of this building. It's just to further the educational opportunities of the existing students and the future students. But it's not really being factored into a growth plan of students. Now, a couple things on the traffic pattern. Pastor Moffitt did mention the memorandum of understanding. One of the key components of that memorandum of understanding is a recognition that the primary traffic pattern is an east-west traffic pattern within this neighborhood. And the MOU protects the corridor to allow both St. Paul and Baldwin to remain uncluttered, unimpeded for the long-term future, because I think that's going to be key for access to 48th Street. The Section 2.2 of the specific site condition, our main concern about that is the potential impact on loss of 18 stalls, because 18 stalls is material for this campus. I mean, I don't know if you can see this. Maybe I can zoom in. But our site plan here,
We're just looking at words.
Yeah, you gotta move it over. Look at the screen.
He's looking for words.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Never mind.
so we're trying to, one of the comments in the staff report is to update this information because we think it's somewhat out of sync with reality. So we're trying to get an accurate count and make sure that we have an accurate count moving forward for all the various uses. But you know, we have over 1,100 parking stalls overall on the campus, and that's why even with that parking count, we're trying to maintain and preserve the 18 stalls that otherwise would be at risk. I would appreciate the amendment to section 2.2 of the site-specific conditions to give us that option. We do have an option to vacate the alleyway. I don't think that makes sense here because of the commitment to the church that would be capable for their patrons to use and the parishioners to use on Sundays and other days of use by the church. So, but I think we have an option to request a deviation from the access management requirement. You know, if you remember the access management policy, it recognizes that there are exceptions to be made in the built environment, and this certainly is in the built environment. It's been there 100 years, and so I think we have a favorable argument to put forward to Public Works to make that request, but I would appreciate that amendment to section 2.2.
How would you propose that read?
In the alternative, a deviation be made to the requirements of the access management policy. I think the other thing that I was going to mention is I'm glad that you located the letters because I couldn't find them in my file. I looked. I know that they're somewhere, but I would characterize them as that there are 4 or 5 letters from individuals, neighbors in the area, and 4 or 5 businesses in the area. And with regard to Mr. and Mrs. Bohati, we did have a specific one meeting we had probably April of 2015 where we sent out individual notices to all the property owners along 50th Street, probably 2 blocks in each direction, and then along St. Paul Street and along Baldwin Street. And we didn't get up to Cleveland because of the distance. We should have, I guess, but we did have probably 30 people attend that meeting in April of 2015. So I think all told, I think we probably had 15 meetings over the last year working with all the various components. In my view, we had 3 primary constituencies that we were dealing with: the property owners, the church, and the University Place Community Organization. And I think Nebraska Wesleyan did a marvelous job of communicating with them all.
And Tom, I see, looks like you've got tremendous business support here, which is terrific. I think, 1 resident. Just out of curiosity, do you know if UPCO has voted to support the project or anything like that? 'Cause I don't see any.
In year ago in March, they opposed the closure of 50th Street. When we went to the meeting into January this year, and we updated them and told them we were going to be moving forward because of the resolution and arrangements made with the church. I'm not sure whether they had any subsequent votes.
And Jerry, do we know if notice went to them about the hearing today? The
To
neighborhood
UPCO?
The neighbor, yeah.
Yes, I'm
Okay.
sure that, gosh, I don't know that I have that information with me.
I
But
know
if
that
they're,
Andrew's got
Yeah, I should add, I think it made it in your packet, but we did receive a letter of opposition from one neighborhood resident.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
I just was curious about the neighborhood association. I want to make sure they had received notice today.
I'm sure that they did. It
Okay.
would be
Any other
Thank you,
questions?
Tom. I
for us?
appreciate
Yeah, I have some, and I apologize, this might have been talked about before I got here. Does Wesleyan have a plan if the street vacation isn't approved about where they're gonna put this science building if
No,
there's no other alternatives in the master plan?
correct.
Now, as I recall, Olin right now is the science building,
Correct.
so what's gonna happen to Olin?
Olin will continue to be used and coordinated with the new science building that's going to be, because of the expanding science programming for the students. It's still going to be required for student purposes.
Okay.
Any other questions?
In conclusion, I would just say that Nebraska Wesleyan and UPCO and the community organization, I think this is a 100-year decision in my mind. This is not a 5-year decision or a 10-year decision. And because of the long-term plan and the future growth of the campus, That's why this site was selected, and that's why this decision was made. So it's the 100-year perspective that really brought us to the table today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have another question. I guess I don't understand, you talked about vacating the alley.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you're talking about the one that's in between 50th and 49th that runs north-south?
It's really between St. Paul on the north and Baldwin on the south.
Yeah. I don't understand why you don't want to vacate the alley.
It's a viable alternative to deal with, to preserve these parking
Yes.
stalls. It would have an impact on Lincoln Manor to the west. It would require their cooperation. I'm not sure whether they'd be in favor of it. And it is contrary to the terms of the memorandum of understanding that Wesleyan has with the church. Because we made a commitment to the church that if we sought vacation of 50th Street, we wouldn't vacate the alley. Because they wanted to make sure that their parishioners from the south still have a way to get to the church and access to that parking lot. Now, we could address that through another mechanism.
So you're saying that if you vacate the alley, you're not going to have the entrance off of St. Paul still into that parking area?
No, I'm not saying that, because if we did vacate the alley, it would become private property, and that no one specifically would have the right to use it. I mean, we could impose an easement on it, and that's what one of the options would be. I think it unduly complicates the circumstance.
But don't you already allow parishioners in the church to use that parking lot right there?
Sure.
It's private property now?
Correct.
So how would that change anything?
It wouldn't. It wouldn't at all.
I guess I would strongly encourage you to vacate that alley, because if you're going to get more parking spaces, that would alleviate some concerns.
But if the complication for Lincoln Manor, it's a discussion we haven't had yet. And if we can achieve the same objective with the deviation from the access management policy, it seems to me that's a path of lesser resistance.
Sure, but I'm saying go for it all and get all the parking you can.
Well, I agree with you. I agree with you on that one. All the parking that we can.
Any other questions? Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
We have 2 items, Jerry.
Yes. You ready to call? Okay. Street and alley vacation, number 16001, to vacate a portion of the North 50th Street public right-of-way between the south right-of-way line of St. Paul Avenue and the north right-of-way line of Baldwin Avenue, generally located at North 50th Street between St. Paul Avenue and Baldwin Avenue. Staff recommendation is conformance with the comprehensive plan.
Entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
Lust and Sunderman. Discussion?
I'll start. I am not insensitive to the issues of traffic, especially in older neighborhoods. But I think when we are faced with issues like universities that are looking for places to expand, I actually think, I think Mr. Houston said, we're looking at kind of a 100-year plan, not just what's happening today. And I think this actually is sort of a creative solution. We're not tearing down lovely historic buildings to put in things. We're trying to use what little open space we have. And I do think areas around campuses are places that are going to, over the next 100 years, continue to become more and more pedestrian-oriented. So I'm going to support the vacation of this street here, because I think in the long term, I think it makes sense for this particular area.
Other discussion?
And the thing I noticed is that the north-south traffic that's on 50th will end up going to the west. 49th Street does have a lot of parking on both sides. It's a real tight street that my daughter went to Wesleyan, by the way. And now we're only 1 block away from 48th, which actually makes more sense for cars to go up north and south. Stay away from the parking, stay away from the pedestrians, and just get out of the neighborhood and go.
Anyone else? I'm going to support the item. I think the sensitive to the parking issue, but I think in the long run we're better off, and the students are better off this way. Jerry, please call the vote.
Beecham?
Yes.
Core?
I'm going to abstain.
Harris?
Yes.
Lust?
Yes.
Sunderman?
Yes.
Hove?
Yes.
Motion carried 5-0, or 5-0 with 1 abstention. Okay. Next item is item 4.3B, pre-existing special permit number 23H, amending special permit number 23 to expand boundaries for construction of a 3-story education building of approximately 75,000 square feet on property located at North 50th Street and Huntington Avenue.
Entertain a motion.
Move approval. Lust.
Second, Sunderman.
Is that with the proposed
Add,
amendment?
yes, as
to-
amended by the applicant.
Thank you.
You want to amend it? Okay.
And you're okay
Agreed.
with that?
Agreed.
Great. Other discussion?
All right, I'll start on this one too. So first of all, I would like to thank Wesleyan for all the outreach you've done. I think success of projects like this and of universities like this really hinge on a team approach and being part of the community. And I think you've really worked hard to do that, and I am greatly appreciative of it. I am going to state that I personally still have some concerns about the historic nature of this neighborhood and of the university and of First United Methodist Church, and putting a really modern structure next to it. I know when we looked at West Haymarket, one of the things we talked about a lot was not replicating the historic, but being respectful and reflective of it. And I think there's a way architecturally to have a really cool, forward-looking building that perhaps has a few more tips of the hat to the historic area. So I would ask you to maybe be mindful of that as you move forward with your design. But overall, I think that growth for projects like this are important. And I think that, like I said, when you're surrounded by a community, then coming up with ways to fill in the cracks for development are important, and I tend to support this.
Others? Good.
I agree with the point about the building being respectful to the older buildings that are around it. But one of the things I like seeing in a university is the combination of the old and the new, the history and the future, and how that all kind of combines in one area, and the whole purpose of a university to remember the past and move forward. I like that they're having discussions between the two buildings. I liked that statement the pastor said before, the combination of faith and science across the way, and the mirrored image in the windows and such. And I know the building is more concept than reality at this point in time, but I like that connection. I like that thought.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I am going to support the application. Having gone to a similar institution in Sioux Falls where my husband is also on the board of trustees, I know how important for this size of a university to continue to expand its programs and grow. And I think adding a science building that is respectful of the neighborhood can only help the university continue to be vibrant. And I think it's a jewel for our community, and I think we should support its efforts to stay vibrant. I, am cognizant of the parking problems there, but I think with the amendment requested by the applicant, hopefully we can actually gain some parking stalls by building this building, and so I'm going to support the application.
Anyone else? I think this is a great move for Wesleyan. I think I appreciate the work that they've done with the church, and the only downside to this is the parking issue, and they can resolve that hopefully in the future with a large parking lot in an area that can support that. So Jerry, please call the vote.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I have the amendment as eliminating condition 2.2. Is that what we're, okay, so the other,
2.2 remains, but added to that is
Requi-
unless a waiver is obtained from the access management.
okay, thank you.
Deviation.
Yeah, I'm sorry, deviation. is
Deviation be made to the requirements of the access management policy?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, just wanted to make sure. Thank you. Okay, calling the vote on pre-existing special permit 23H as amended. Beecham?
Yes.
Core?
Abstain?
Harris?
Yes.
Lust?
Yes.
Sunderman?
Yes.
Hove?
Yes.
Motion carried 5-0.
At this time, anyone wishing to speak on an item not on the agenda may do so. We're adjourned.